Gonna start working on this now. So one of the downsides is this microphone is now picking up everything, whereas before it picked up nothing. And my vacuum is going insane in the background. Come on there, guy. Okay, we should be good to go here. I do want to make sure the audio isn't terrible. Let me see if there's anything I can change on this end. I don't think so. Okay. Alright, I just want to check and see how well you can hear me from over here. Okay, sounds pretty good. All right. Hi there, Mr. Bear. All right, we're getting started. Okay, so I'll be installing a new 9900K and a Z390 motherboard that I unboxed yesterday. If you want to chat with me, if you tune in, feel free to ask questions. I'll check it periodically. I know the sound on this isn't great. I'm streaming this from my phone, so that's the best we'll be able to do. So what I'll be doing, I have to basically take out all my old components, clean off the heatsink, clean off the fan, reapply the new thermal paste I got, install the new motherboard, all the accessories, hook everything up. So we're ready to go. To show you what we'll be doing today, I'll be installing a 9900K. You're going to get a lot of good view of my nice fat tummy during this because it's the best I can do with the camera angle. I'm going to sit down while I'm actually working on it so you can see my face. But we'll be installing a 9900K. Here's my Core i9. Get a little sense of what this is going to look like. And then we'll also be installing a Z390 Aorus Master motherboard from Gigabyte. Both of these I bought out of pocket, so these are things I chose. My PC right now is a 6700K with a Z130 motherboard, so this will be a big upgrade. I'm going to take out all the components, kind of lay them over here so you can see them. I'm going to move this over a little bit so I have more room to work, and then we'll go from there. I did unhook everything last night so that I could start working on this right away, and I did unplug most of the internal connectors as well. So there is some steps we're going to be skipping just to save me time, so I can get to play with this thing tonight, hopefully. So I have to reinstall Windows, do all the whole shebang, basically doing a full rebuild. Normally, if you're doing something like this, you want to have like an anesthetic mat to work on. I do not have one, so we'll be taking a little risk, but in my experience, it's usually not too bad. All right, so put the new stuff up there. Ready to go. Take off my side panel. And we'll get to work. All right, so what we'll actually do is I'll work on this end so you can kind of watch. We'll have all the nice stuff laid out back here. And again, if you have questions, let me know. I'm happy to try to answer them. That's my ability. All right, so first things first, I'm going to be removing my accessory adaptive, my add-on cards. So I'll be taking out my graphics card and some other things. So first things first, this is my little USB port extender. Just a little PCI card, it's 4 USB ports. Next is my capture card, my AverMedia Live Gamer 4K. All right, and then finally I'll be taking out my 2080 Ti. And there's my lovely 2080 Ti from MSI. All right, next I'm taking out my RAM. I have G.Skill Ripjaw series memory. That's out. I've got a M860 Evo solid state drive that I'll be removing next. It's an M2 slot drive, so these are a little different, newer technology. And I will try to highlight and show you video of what I consider to be key parts of the build as little tips. Since Mr. Bear is hanging out, we want to make sure he's not hidden off camera. So we'll move the chair. There you go, now you can see Mr. Bear hanging out with us in the corner. He likes to supervise when I'm working on my computer. Or really when I'm doing anything. Or when I'm dropping all my parts. Ugh. Alright. That was just my screwdriver. Nothing to worry about. Alright, get it together, Patton. Tell you what, just put that there, and I need to switch them out for a bunch anyway. So removing an M2 SATA drive is pretty straightforward. So basically when you take out the little screw, it just pops up and you just pull it straight out. This is a 1 terabyte solid state drive. That's how small these are now. All I'm doing is reinstalling the screw for it, so after I sell the motherboard, the screw isn't lost. Alright. So, basically where I'm at now is I've got a couple little things to remove. So here's a USB connector. Oh, that might have been audio. That might have been front port audio, actually. Yeah, I never used that, so I took that out. All right, we got to remove our heatsink and unscrew the motherboard and remove the motherboard. So we're moving pretty quick here. So my heatsink, if you can see it right here, this is a Corsair H150 Pro. This is the water block. It's an all-in-one water cooler. The fans up here are attached to the radiator, which cools it. So it's pretty easy to remove and install and do what you gotta do with it. So it's just thumb screws. All right. Get these out. And that's it. Now I can just lift the heatsink, the water pump and the cold plate straight off, and we're all set with it. Okay. So as you can see, it just comes straight up. And I'll have to clean it off a little bit, but it's removed. I'm gonna be careful with it because it is liquid. I don't want to, do anything too risky with it. So we'll just put it out of the way for now. All right, now you can see my 6700K is right there. So what I'm going to be doing next is unscrewing the screws that hold the motherboard in. Actually, before I do that, I've got to take off these standoffs. So each of these Corsair all-in-one coolers come with different size standoffs. So these standoffs right here are what the thing I just removed, the pump and the cold plate actually attached to. Just to show you what I'm talking about. A little thing like that. There's 4 of them, one for each corner. And those will be coming back on for the new motherboard. So that's that. Hey there, Omega Fighter, how you doing? Thanks for jumping over. I'll be right back. I gotta go grab my other back plate. Good to hear. Glad you're doing well. All right, so this is what I was grabbing. So what a backplate does is you put this on the back side of the motherboard, and the standoffs I was just showing you will screw through the motherboard into this, and it pulls it to the motherboard. Basically helps even distribution of force around the motherboard. When you first install it and the heatsink isn't on, it's usually loose. So don't worry about that. It'll tighten up once you install the actual heatsink or the water pump or whatever you're going to do. Trying to think what else you need to know about it. It's a very light kind of plasticky thing. And there's different sizes for different sockets. So I'm using this for a 9900K, but there could be different ones you use based on what processor you're using. So make sure you read your manual for your cooler. Make sure you're using the right one, otherwise you're going to have issues. All right, so the next step here is basically to unscrew everything. Okay. Sorry, that's my phone getting a message. Oh, Need to put on the right size screwdriver head for this. What is it you were looking for? You're making me think of the song. These are the screws that hold a motherboard in place. Trying to show you a good image of it. There you go. And typically for a full-size motherboard, you're looking at somewhere around 8 or 9. Oh, good. You found it? I know you were talking about it the other day. Mega Man's a pretty classic, awesome game. Oh, nice. Probably the last place you look for it, right? Oh, hit the wrong button here. Just setting my tablet to chat only so I have a better view of the chat while I'm working here. All right. Before I'm going to go too much further, I do want to clean off my heatsink here so that thermal paste doesn't get spread around the case. So I'm going to grab some paper towels, show you guys how to do that. So there's a few different ways to clean thermal paste, but they all boil down to using 99% iso. I'm going to say this wrong. Isopropanol, 99% rubbing alcohol. You want to use one that's very high, otherwise it'll leave residue back. Oh, that's pretty cool, man. That's almost like a collector's item at this point. So the rubbing alcohol dries quickly, doesn't leave residue when it's at this high percentage, and it'll help to get the thermal paste off. You can use like I'm pretty sure it's safe. Make sure you look this up, but I'm pretty sure it's safe to use like a microfiber cloth or something that's lint free, but I prefer to use a paper towel. You want to make sure the paper towel isn't going to dissolve and leave all the paper bits on it. We're just going to wipe this off until it cleans up. You can see the thermal paste coming off. It's really important you clean the heatsink pretty well and the CPU before you apply your thermal paste, because you want it to be a good connection. When we get to the part about applying thermal paste, I'll talk a little bit more about how I do it. There is debates. The nice thing too about the rubbing alcohol is it dries quickly, so you don't have to worry about shorting stuff out. Okay. So you can see this has got a nice kind of shiny copper look to it now. You know, it's pretty well cleaned up. He could fix it overnight, but I can fix it within a couple hours. It's an area where I'm going to beat Jeff up. We'll be done here probably by 7. Alright, so I'm still getting a little bit of the compound. Getting another paper towel. Bring him over here for now. Okay, we're looking pretty good. Just about clear. So that's good. I'm also going to rub the thermal paste off my old CPU in the same method. Because I will be selling this. And the new owner's going to want it clean. And there you go, it's all cleaned up. Okay. Alright, we're going to seal our alcohol up. Now we're ready to remove this old motherboard. Well, rubbing alcohol is going to do really well at removing oil and like if you had like spilled soda on it, like anything sticky, it'll dissolve it. It's not really going to repair scratches. It's worth a shot, but I don't think it's really going to repair a disc like that. It will clean it up really good though, so something you can try. You know, it's not going to cost you much, and it certainly won't make things worse if you got a bad game. All right, so now everything's out, and the motherboard just lifts right out. All right, so it was held in by some screws. There was a screw here, 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 here. So all total, you've got, I believe that's 9 screws. 3 here, 3 in the middle, 3 in the top. When you take those 9 screws out, motherboard pulls right out, you're good to go. Everything I have in here should still fit my new motherboard because it's the same type of motherboard, but if you're going to a smaller one, you might have to do it. Oh, you're looking at my old PC. This is my old PC right here. And the rest of it is behind you on the table. So all I'm doing is upgrading the motherboard and CPU. So I'm putting in a brand new processor and motherboard right now. All right. Put that there just for a moment. Okay. And here you can see my old back plate. Right there. Exact same as the new one. New one's a little bit different shape, but not much. So I'm going to put this old one with the old cooler it came with. I'll be right back. Hi there. The other thing I need to remove here is the old I/O shield. So what the old I/O shield is, that sounds like really psychobabbly stuff or really babbly stuff. Right up here where my hand is, it's just what covers the ports between your motherboard. It's this thing right here. So it just fits the back of the motherboard so your ports don't have all these gaps in it when like you're plugging in your USB stuff or your mouse, keyboard, stuff like that. So has its own I/O shield. We'll be declining that phone call. I don't know who's calling me, but I don't know anybody in that state. All right. So to remove the old I/O shield, I'm pretty sure all you gotta do is push in here and it should pop right out. Yep. That's all there is to it. This is the old I/O shield from my old motherboard, and I'll ship it with the old motherboard when I sell it. Leave it there for now. All right, and so now basically those are the guts of my computer been removed. Now, things that I'm not redoing right now, I've got my hard drives right here in my case. So I've got 3 kind of standard SATA hard drives and then a solid state drive. I have my power supply down here, which you can't really see, so I won't be doing anything with that. And then I've got my H150i Pro up here installed. I won't be taking that fully out. I'll just be reapplying that to the new motherboard. So it's time to install the new motherboard at this point. Very important tip. Do not install the new motherboard without first putting on your back plate. Otherwise your life is going to suck. because then you have to take the whole thing apart, start all over again. Because without this, you can't attach your cooler to your CPU, and your computer will not boot. Well, it'll boot, but you risk damaging it because it won't have any way to stay cool. And it's not going to function. It'll just turn itself off. Right. So if you missed it yesterday, if you missed my unboxing video yesterday, this is my new motherboard. Give you a nice look at it here. So this is the Gigabyte Z390 Aorus Master, or however they say this. It is the Z390 is the most modern Intel chipset, and so I needed it for this processor. So to install the motherboard again, first put your heatsink backplate on. Which is going to fit on here like so. Okay, to see what so you can see what I'm doing. It's going to be hard to do it and show you, but there's 4 holes around the socket, right here, 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 and here. What I'm going to be doing is putting those 4 things through those notches. All right, and this has 2 settings. There's an internal setting, and I can slide this out if that's for a different type of processor motherboard combo. All right, and when it's installed, you'll see that the holes are now filled up. Okay, you can see through them, but that's installed right. And now I can actually put the motherboard in my computer. Before I do that, a little piece of plastic here, it's got to come off. That. Let's make sure there's no more of that laying around anywhere. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Alright, and then we install it. Now this one has the I/O shield built in. Convenient and a pain in the ass sometimes, so we'll see how it goes. The good thing about this motherboard, it has a really nice back plate, so I really can't damage it unless I really try. Famous last words, right? Alright, let's get those out of the way. That can come out of the way for now. And I just need to line it up with those standoffs in my case, and then I'll be good to screw it in, and it's done. Gotta slide it up a little bit. Okay. We're looking okay. Yeah, we're looking all right. Just want to make sure it looks right from this side. Yeah, I think I'm close. I think. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Hey, Omega, if you're still listening, do me a favor and type a message just so I can make sure my tablet didn't crash on me. Alright, so next step is to rescrew it in. And I verified my back plate is still okay. It didn't come loose while I was doing that. Oh, it worked. I got an automated message. I like to start with the screws at the top because those are the ones that can be the trickiest with the I/O shield kind of moving a bit. Pretty sure I got it right. I want to make sure because sometimes, yeah, that's good. I can't really show you it without moving the phone, and I have it precariously set up as it is. But it's, how you know it's right is it's flush against the back end there. One thing I may have wanted to do, we'll see how it turns out because it may delay me, is I usually like to install the CPU before I install the motherboard in the case, because it's a little bit easier to do when you have the extra room. My case is pretty big, so I don't think I'm going to have any issues, but just as a heads up, you know, when you're doing your own builds and things like that, you're probably going to want to make sure that you do that first if you're not using a full-size case, a full ATX size case. Part of the reason there's so much room in this case is because it's a full tower. It's a very big computer case. It weighs about 25 pounds. All right. Got two more of these to do. Favorite part of computers is losing their screws. Oh, that's not straight. There we go. There we go. Oh. My screwdriver is too bulky. I'll be right back. So I was having a little trouble with the corner screw because my screwdriver widens pretty early on here. So I need something like this that's narrower to fit in there. Oh, cool. You're doing Spy Hunter? Nice. I don't know if I'm familiar with Spy Hunter, to be honest. Oh, I think you were telling me about it the other day. Yeah, that you were looking for it. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do, for convenience sake here, is I'm going to put those standoffs back in. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to install the processor. I need to remind myself by grabbing a cable. I'm also going to put my old stuff away. I don't want it to short out. I don't like to leave my stuff exposed any longer than I have to, just to watch out for static electricity. Alright, so that's all squared away. Alright, so, let's see, where are we? Gotta install our CPU and then we'll be in good shape. A few different steps left here. Alright, so I'm going to be unboxing or opening my Core i9 now. So that's where we got to have a drum roll here. This is an extremely high-end processor and extremely expensive and probably overpriced, but you only live once, right? Opens up in a very fancy way. Installing a processor. Not hard, but you got to be careful. Otherwise, life becomes very painful. So the first thing you do, you can see this is the CPU socket. This is where the processor is going to go, and it comes with a protective plastic plate. That's to make sure none of the pins in there, there's 1,100 of them, over 1,100 of them, get bent. If they're bent, you're screwed. So to open it, there's a little latch here on the right. You push down, you pull out, you lift up. It loosens. And it comes right off. And the plastic part, you save this. Don't throw this out because to return motherboards, you need it. So I just put it right in the box. We'll be dealing with some of this stuff in a little bit. Lots of little accessories in here. You're really gonna scratch the couch right in front of me? No, you know better. It's not food time yet, is it? Oh, it's getting close to bare food time. All right, I'll feed you after I install my processor, little rat. Okay, so opening this up. There you go. There she is. Now she's wrapped in plastic. The processor has an arrow right here and notches right here and right here. See if you can see that. See right there, right below my finger, the corner, there's a little notch, and there's one right here too. That helps you align the processor right to make sure you're putting it in the motherboard properly. If you try to force it, you're doing it wrong and you should stop immediately. Make sure you read the manual, the directions are really clear. And what I can see is these two notches, the processor is going to go in just like I'm holding it. So it's going to sit in the motherboard tray like this. Now you might not be able to see it because of the reflections, but basically you should be able to read the writing top to bottom, at least for this motherboard and how it's all set up. It could be different based on your hardware. All right. You want to hold the CPU on the edges. You do not want to touch these pins back here. All right, and the actual pins are right down there, so you don't want to really touch this. It'll screw things up. Fold it like this. Line it up. That's it. Okay? Those two notches line up with the socket. And I'm going to verify to make sure I do the next step right. But I'm pretty sure all I need to do now is relatch it. Oh, that'd be cool. Man, I'm real excited. You got a lot of cool classic games. You should find a way to stream that. Okay, so they don't recommend removing the cover first, like I did. I mean, they don't recommend against it. They don't say to do that. I prefer to do it. So all I'm going to have to do now, get everything's checked, close the little lid here. Okay. Now it's just resting on top of it. Push down on the lever. Did it wrong. Oops. Yeah. I'm going to stop myself. Something doesn't feel right. Always a good tip. Oh, that's the problem. The front end of the load plate has to go under this screw in the front, and I didn't do that. There we go. Now we're okay. See? Just a little change. I don't know if you're going to be able to see what happened there. There's a screw right in front of the load plate, and the load plate has a notch right here. You see how it's kind of, the top of it's cut out. So you want to make sure that that slides to where the screw is. Now there's a little lever here. All I do is push forward and latch it underneath. That's it. You're done. You don't have to push the lever too hard. It should be pretty easy to do. If at any point it feels difficult, stop yourself like you saw me do. It's a really good tip for this. It's a very easy thing to mess up, and you can very easily damage the socket or the CPU if you're not being careful. Everything's good to go here. So we're ready to go on to the next steps again. All right. So the next thing I'll be doing is getting our heatsink standoffs reinstalled. Again, different CPUs may not use this. This is for a water cooler. You may have a different process if you're not using an all-in-one water cooler like I am. And basically all I do is screw these in until they're hand tight into those little holes I showed you where the back plate connected. So it's just a little simple process here. It'll take me a moment. I always get excited with new computer hardware. It's always fun. It's like my version of Christmas morning. All right. Now that the standoffs are in, I am going to feed my cat. That'll just take me a minute. Take a quick break here. Next thing we'll be doing is installing the heatsink, applying the thermal paste. That'll be first. We'll be applying the thermal paste, installing the heatsink back on there, and then we'll be going from there. We'll be installing the new M2 SATA drive, so reinstalling my hard drive, installing the RAM, installing the graphics card, all that stuff, and then connecting everything. I'm actually going to connect the motherboard to the front of this before I do the rest of that. So one of the steps we have to do is actually connect like the power button and all that on your computer to the motherboard. Yelling at me about Mr. Better. That is hot. So one of the tips I learned about this Thermal Grizzly Cryo-Knot paste. While I was reading about it, it can help make applying it easier. It's a very temperature-sensitive paste, so it can be very thick if it's cold. And it's been cold here in Tampa. At least for us, it's only been in about the 60s today. So this thing was sitting outside. So about an hour ago, the tip I read was to take the bag it comes in. Just show you that real quick. You take this bag, place it in hot water, and let it warm up for a few minutes. That'll make the paste thin out, so it's easier to use. And then, it's waterproof, so you're fine. Eat your food. Oh, you want some kibble instead? You're not eating your other food. See, your kibble's gone. Continue feeding the cat. He does like to hop into my computers when I'm building that. So feeding the cat is an essential part of building a processor. A new computer or installing a processor. Because he will make his presence known if we do not do that. There you go. There. Yeah, I hear you yelling at me. Now, what I'm going to do while that stuff's heating up a little bit, this thing came with what they call a G connector, which I was confused as to what it was last night during my unboxing video. Oh, what's the bad news there, Omega? Anyway, what this connector does, not every motherboard comes with it, but it makes it easier to plug all your front connectors for your case into it, and then you just click it in. You don't have to fiddle with it all the time. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do right now. And what's nice about this, it clicks right in. This is my little speaker for my computer. Power switch. Reset switch. Oh yeah, I heard about him passing away from ALS. Yeah, I heard about that. That is sad. So while you're doing your connectors here, well, I'm talking about two things at once here, but while you're doing your connectors, you want to make sure you're lining up the positive and the negative terminals properly. That's something that took me a long time to figure out when I was younger. And usually the way I understand it, because it's not really labeled on these very well, is the positive is going to be the colored one that's got like my case, they're green or red or orange, and your common, your negative terminal is going to be white or black. Oop, I just unplugged something. Reset switch. My hands aren't as small as they used to be. It's not always a good thing. Yeah. 2018's been a weird year. My wife was telling me this morning, like, here's how weird 2018's been. We had the Winter Olympics earlier this year, and Black Panther came out. And that feels to me like it was 5 years ago. How's this guy not going in? I know this is where it goes. There we go. Just had to line it up right. Okay. Now, how does it actually go in over here? Oh, that damn reset switch came loose again on me. Make sure I'm doing it right. Where did I put that little manual? It's really fun when you get done and then realize you wired the reset switch or the power switch line. And you're like, why isn't it booting? It's because your power switch is backwards. No, I had it right. Okay, let's put that back. I we're just going to install this and we'll slide the reset switch in by itself. The speaker wire out of the way. The reset switch goes right next to the hard drive. It's funny, but this is one of the hardest parts, is just getting the case word right. We're done. All right, it's in. Okay. Well, the good news there is I probably gave our thermal paste plenty of time to heat up. So next step, before applying the thermal paste, you want to drop your cap for your rubbing alcohol and go searching for it. So your next step with applying thermal paste, you want to wipe the CPU again, your new CPU, because when installing it, it's not uncommon to get some fingerprints and finger oils on there and stuff, and the rubbing alcohol will take care of that. It'll dry pretty quickly. Again, it's 99% rubbing alcohol, so it dries within a matter of minutes. Honestly, a matter of seconds typically. And I just like to wipe it down, get any residue off, make sure I didn't leave like little bits of paper. It looks good. And now we go to the thermal paste. I don't know how to say the name of this thermal paste. It is Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut, like cryogenics. Very weird. And the way you want to apply thermal paste, I read an article on it from Gamer Nexus. You'll read online a million different opinions about how to apply thermal paste. Honestly, it's the politics of computer world. Here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to apply too little. And you want to make sure you don't apply too much. However, you won't actually do harm if you apply too much. You will just make a mess. And some thermal pastes are electrically conductive. This one is not. So I could smear this all over the thing and it won't damage the motherboard. It just looked terrible. It's not going to conduct electricity. Some of them will. All right, so directions. Mount the applicator to the syringe. So the applicator is this. Looks like a little squeegee. Here's a syringe. And I'm trying to figure out how you mount it, because they are very different sizes. Oh, it's a cap. Take the cap off. All right, it kind of screw. Oh, it's got threads. It just screws on the applicator. It's easy. It's got little rubber threads. So you just screw it on. Now it looks like that. All right. What I'm going to be doing, there's different methods you'll hear about. So one method of applying thermal paste is you put a pea-sized amount in the middle of the thing, the middle of the processor, and screw on your heatsink and let the pressure of the heatsink spread it out. You can do that. What GamerNexus found when they tested it is that you got the same temperatures. However, it doesn't always cover the whole heat spreader. So this part of the CPU you're seeing is actually covering the actual chip. It's a heat spreader, and in this case, it has another thermal material inside of it to conduct heat from the chip to the heat spreader. And then we're going to put this on top to conduct heat from this to the heatsink. That's how you cool a CPU. What they found is that applying too little is going to affect your temperatures the most. What I'm going to be doing is I want to make sure it covers the whole thing, because this is an 8-core processor. I don't want parts of this getting hotter than the rest. I'm going to spread a pretty thin layer across the whole thing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this to you guys any closer than what you can see, but that's going to be covered with a very thin layer of this. So with that being said, I'm going to start. Just make sure I read the directions here. Thin as possible, but cover the entire CPU heat spreader. Okay, so yeah, they recommend that you do it that way. All right, so I've started the flow. You can see it. What I like about this applicator, it's a nice little squeegee, so you can just pull and spread it. The paste is thick. Like I said, you want to heat it up so it's a little easier to spread, so that's definitely helping you out right now. If you get a little over the edge, not a problem. You can clean it up if you want to. I'm just going to leave it. It's not the end of the world here. This is not a conductive paste, so... What the thermal paste does is that it fills in the little gaps, the little microscopic gaps between the heat spreader on the CPU and your heatsink. And it is a conductive, heat conductive material, thermally conductive material, so it helps to get the heat off the CPU as quickly as possible. Space Marine, I'm installing a 9900K with a Z390 motherboard, Gigabyte Aorus Master. So there's the proof. I don't know why it's upside down. Probably because I'm holding it upside down, or I'm looking at it in a weird angled camera thing. It's reading it backwards. So it's a Core i9 9900K. We'll also be installing 16 gigs of memory, a lot of stuff from my old build. So everything below the chat, all the stuff besides the CPU and motherboard is the same. Same video card, 2080 Ti. It's an MSI Gaming X Trio. My capture card, some other goodies. Yeah, you got any questions, let me know. Yeah, let's put it this way. I shouldn't have spent the money on this stuff, but I did. It's definitely not enough money to get another one. But I'm coming from a 6700K to a 9900K, so this should actually unlock my current 2080 Ti, which was definitely CPU limited in certain situations. So all I'm doing right now is just making sure I get that nice thin spread like I was talking about on the thermal material here. Need just a smidgen more. You want to try to keep it even because you don't want air to get trapped underneath there. Air is bad in these situations. It does not conduct heat. This is a very thick paste. I can definitely see why people have had trouble with it before. We're starting to look pretty good here. All right. Oh yeah, those are definitely wheels. This case weighs 25 pounds, man. This case isn't a joke. It's a full tower case and it's made of steel. This is where I should have paid more attention in art class. Now you don't have to be perfect with this, just so you know if you're doing it. You know, you just want to make sure you get that thin layer across. It doesn't have to be perfectly, you know, smooth and everything, because you're gonna mount the heat sink's gonna come on with quite a bit of force, and it's gonna smooth it all out. You just want to make sure there's no gaps. You know, you got a nice thin layer going. Awesome. All right, enjoy your dinner, man. Thanks for coming in. We should be back. We should be done hopefully here in about an hour. So. All right. There's just one little area on the top here. I'm trying to get a little bit more on. It's not my best job, I can already tell. I don't think it's anything to worry about. My first time using this paste, you know. So what's happening is it's so thin it's sticking to the squeegee and not the CPU. So I want it, ooh, and there it just wiped off the CPU. There we go. I got it now. Just had to get a little more even pressure. This is a very interesting paste. I may end up redoing this later on. We'll see how this turns out. It's not going to damage my processor. You know, it's not going to cause any harm to the PC. I just might not be able to overclock as much. But yeah, I'm just having a really difficult time getting it to spread the way I like it. And I'm trying to get it so it's thin, smooth, no gaps, you know, but every time I'm going to make a correction, like I'm overthinking it, it ends up kind of sticking to the brush here. You can kind of see it glomming on there. And then, you know, I have to kind of start that section over. Might be using a little too much pressure, so I'm going to try to lighten it up. All right, that's looking better. All right. I want to make sure I didn't touch it with my hand there. All right, I feel like this is a lot of thermal paste. It's hard to tell. I can definitely see some areas where I went over the edge here. Wondering if I could clean this up a little bit. I have some ideas on that. Because the thing to remember when you're doing this is that, again, when you put that heatsink or your all-in-one water cooler plate down, it's going to put quite a bit of force on this, and it's going to force the paste into a very thin layer. So it's going to kind of spill over the edge of the processor, and it can look really ugly. Again, this paste won't cause any harm. That's why I don't go with thermally conductive paste, electrically conductive. I don't want to risk shorting something out for a minuscule amount of gain. All right, we're in good shape. All right, so what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna cap off my paste here first. I don't want it to dry out on me. All right. Next step's going to be screwing on the cooler. All right, so this was already installed from before. So what I have to do here, I'm going to unplug it for the moment, because we can do that in a bit. All right. These are very easy to install. Line it up. And again, I already cleaned the bottom. Yeah, the bottom's looking pretty good. There's no fingerprints on it. It's all good. So what you do next is just line it up with those standoffs. Each of the little ledges, push down. I like to give it a little wiggle, just to kind of work the paste a little bit. And now we screw it in. And in the case of this H150i Pro, it's 4 thumb screws. Oh, hey Tannhauser, how you doing? I missed your little message there. Welcome. Yeah, it's some work. It's not too bad. We're making good progress. We just got the. I was working there on the getting a thermal paste on the CPU. It's my first time using this new thermal paste I got, and it's a little thicker than some of the ones I'm used to because unfortunately it's kind of actually cold here in Tampa today. It's in the 60s. It was actually in the 50s. It's gonna get in the 40s overnight. So the paste was in the mailbox, kind of thickened up. So I put it in some hot water to thin it out, and it worked a bit. But then as it got into my house, which is a little cooler than normal, it thickened up again. So, all right. So all I'm gonna be doing now is screwing in these thumb screws to hold the cooler on and tighten it down. Something you want to know on how I do this. I'll put them on all initially at first. I like to do a crisscross pattern and slowly tighten all sides. I don't like to go full tight, full pressure on one side, if that makes sense. I like to kind of make sure the pressure gets evened out nicely as I'm doing it. So I'll do like a little bit of a crisscross pattern here. All right, so I'm gonna start here, couple turns, couple turns. Next side, couple turns. Until I start to get a little bit of friction. You can tell which one is loosest while you're doing this because it'll turn easier. And you keep going basically till they're hand tight. You don't have to over tighten. What this is doing is it's got the back plate, the motherboard, and then the heatsink. It's pulling them together between the CPU. So as you're tightening this, the back plate's getting tighter against the back of the motherboard, and the CPU heatsink is getting tighter against the CPU. So this is how you ensure you have good contact so that your thermal performance is good. Yeah. And again, it is a little mess there. I had a little bit of that paste on my finger, so it just got on the heatsink. No harm done, I'll clean it. But as you're doing this, the paste is spreading out underneath between the heatsink and the processor, filling in those gaps that are really small and ensuring that your CPU stays nice and cool. Again, you don't have to do anything crazy. Just hand tighten them. When they get hard to turn, that's good. You're done. Make sure all of them are about even. That's it. That's all it is to installing a heatsink. Now, I will say this. If you're, all there's installing is H150i Pros, the Corsair, and I've installed several Corsair all-in-one coolers, all about the same. If you're going to be installing like a heatsink, one of these big things, monstrosities that comes out of here, it is a little bit more scary because it's a big, heavy thing that you're doing. But otherwise, same process that you just saw applies. All right. What I'm connecting here, CPU fan header. This is not a CPU optional. This is just a little thing that tells the motherboard, yeah, there's a fan plugged in. Don't freak out. My hands are clean here. Now, I'm gonna go wash my hands real quick and pick back up. All right, next step, going to be installing my M2 SATA hard drive, solid state drive. This is it. And I showed it off earlier, very small. Okay, give you a sense of how it is compared to my hand. This is a 1 terabyte solid state drive. This is the new format. And I read earlier, I'm going to double check the manual, but I don't know how well you guys can see it. Yeah, it looks like you can see just the top one. This here is a heatsink for these types of solid state drives. You don't really need them necessarily, but they're helpful. They can be helpful. So I'm going to be putting it in the middle one, which you just can't quite see. I wonder if I can, I think there's a thing I can do to make this a little better for you guys. Nope, that wasn't going to work. Yeah, I don't think that made a difference. Well, it'd be nice if I could get you guys to be able to see inside the case. I just don't think I'm going to be able to do it too well, or much better than it is. All right. So I'll double check the motherboard for that. So with these motherboards, the reason I'm checking it is because I've got to hook up a bunch of hard drives, and once I start using one of these, some of the hard drive slots turn off. And I just want to double check to make sure I got it right. Some of the SATA ports turn off. So again, I got 4 drives here. I'm going to need to make sure they're wired in, so I need 4 of these to be working after I use one of these. Okay, so we're going to be using the middle one. Yeah. We're going to be using the middle one because that only disables one port. It disables the number 1 port, SATA 3.1, which is going to be this top one right here that you probably can't see. I'll double check that before I hook up the rest, but looks like the way to go. Just taking the heatsink cover off. It's a bug. Get that off. That's pretty tightly on there. Oh, I don't want to get that off. Oops. I add, because obviously that's what the screwdriver, the heatsink I just unscrewed screws into, so I just need to put in a new screw here for where this thing lines up. In the case of this, I believe it's a 2280, so I'm going to be using the 8cm slot, which will be the middle one. Nicely labeled on this motherboard. Nope, it's actually not the little one, it's the far one here. It's nicely labeled on this motherboard, so you can tell which distance to use. Okay, so we put that in. Oh God. Alright. It did escape. Alright, so we put that in. So when you install these, they install kind of funny. You install them at like a 30-degree angle, push down and screw them in. So it's really easy to install. Again, about that 30-degree angle. I'm going to go over on this side. I'm going to do this. There's a notch, so you can't go wrong. It makes a little click. And can you see it? No, just can't quite see it. It's sticking up right now at an angle like this. That's normal, and you push it down and use a little screw to hold it down. And then you screw the heatsink if you have one over on top of it. At least that's how it works for this motherboard. So I'm going to be pushing it down, lining up with the screw. Yeah, that wasn't a high. These little screws I do not like, but it's easy just to hold it down with your hand. Line the screw up and then screw it in. And that's it. That's installed. And then I put the heatsink back on top. Just kind of lays on top there. And screw it in. Yeah, I did it right. And what this heatsink does, I mean, they just conduct some heat away. Ooh, that was good. So you see what's going on here with the heatsink. It might not look like much. Oh, I'm glad I looked at this. I would have made a mistake. There's plastic covering it. Take that off. That's thermally conductive. It's a thermal pad that conducts heat. That would have been not necessarily bad. This thing doesn't put off a lot of heat, but it would have been stupid. So, get a little lesson there. See, we're learning. It's my only my second time installing a drive like this and first time doing it with a heatsink, so I'm glad I checked that. Alright, so we put that on there, press down a little bit so it's making good contact. Screw that guy in. The reason I did this first is because when I installed my 2080 Ti, it's a monstrosity in the background there. It's really big, and it's not going to be possible to install in these slots once that thing's in here. Alright. And so before I install any more, before I install any more of the add-on cards, I'm going to make sure my wiring is done. I don't like to put things in and have to work around it, and I need to run another cable before I install any of those big cards. I can install the RAM, that's not going to take up all that much room, so I'll do that. So for whatever reason, this particular motherboard, probably because it's a pretty high-end motherboard, it's a pretty good one, uses two 8-pin CPU power connectors instead of just one like my old one did. Probably for improving the power delivery to the chip, to the CPU. So I'm going to have to run a cable around the back. I could just throw it over the top, but that doesn't look good. I don't like to do that. So before I do that, there's a few other things here I can just connect and kind of get that done with. So let's see what that means in practice. So motherboard power can go in this big cable right up here. And again, it only goes in one way, so if you try, hey Space Marine. Yeah, CPU's in, heatsink's in, just starting to put the other stuff together. I just installed my M2 SATA, my 860 Evo. Almost made a silly mistake. Turns out these heatsinks, you can see one right here. There's 3 of them where you can't quite see them. If you take them off, make sure you take the plastic off the thermal pad. So yeah, CPU's in, heatsink, the all-in-one cooler is installed. Now what we're doing is basically assembling everything. So I'm just making sure I like my wiring the way I'm doing things. Okay. So this guy is for my Corsair Link and CPU cooler. What I usually do is run it underneath here and around. It's kind of a funky cable that they include. And it plugs in right here. And then it plugs into a USB header on your motherboard. So I'm going to hook that up in a little bit. See actually if I can find one. I like to kind of get it out of the way early just because it's a very awkwardly shaped cable. I don't really want it wedged necessarily. That works. There's a little fan up here. There's a fan header, and I don't want it to block me being able to use that fan header. That's what I'm going to do. Oh, there's an easier way to do this than what I just did. I'll plug this. Yeah. We're going to put it on the side against this #1 RAM slot because I'm not going to be using that anyway. And that'll leave me more space if I decide to install a fan up there. We'll just put it underneath here. underneath here. We gotta find where there's a USB connection on this motherboard for this. Most of the time it's at the bottom. They're labeled. We got our USB front ports here. Oh, I gotta go turn on my, I'm starting to cook. So let me throw in my potatoes. Make sure I don't burn down the house. I know you guys are gonna be hearing that fan. I hope it's not too annoying. If it is, let me know. You guys can tell where I spend my money. $600 processor, 59-cent potatoes for dinner. Good life choices. It's actually leftover sweet potatoes that I didn't make for Thanksgiving, so I want to use them up before they go bad. Don't worry, I'm taking care of myself. Oh, forgot to put the lid back on my rubbing alcohol. Let's see. Yeah, I know, right? Why is my new PC on fire? I don't understand what I did wrong. Oh, I left the thing on. Oops. Alright. I left the plastic on for my heatsink. Yeah, that would be a really goofy error for me to make. Alright. I'm going to install my memory just to get it out of the way. Actually, yeah, I think we're good. Where is my USB thing for this? Oh, front USB 1, front USB 2. They're down here. No problem. I got it. You guys can't see it, but this I'll show you this cable. These are real easy to use. This is a little USB front header. So it works for this heatsink, so it links up to the PC. But this is also for, you know, you can use it, same type of connector for like a front panel USB port if your case has that. No, the plan isn't to play at 4K 60. I have a G-Sync 1440p high-end IPS panel, blah, blah, blah. We're going to be aiming for 144 FPS at 1440p. So I'm hoping this will help. I'm also, well, the other thing though to note is I'm also hoping to improve my stream quality and switch from the internal encoder on the RTX cards, which are better, and switch over from the internal, encoders to the software, the CPU encoding, since I'll have enough cores now to do it. Again, just a little reminder, I know I keep saying this, but if a connector isn't going in, you're probably putting it in backwards. They're pretty well idiot-proof now. So don't force things. You don't have to. It usually means you're doing something wrong. If you're nervous, I know that there's that cultural stigma about reading a manual. Read the damn manual. It saves you so much time. Believe me, that's a lesson I wish I had known as a younger guy. Alright. Next thing I'm going to do is scratch my head about what is this thing? Why is this here? Oh, I know why that's there. That's for my other add-on card. I wonder where that got buried. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do, I've wired the case. I'm going to connect a few more loose connectors I got down here. So I got my USB ports for the front of the case. So those need to get plugged in. That's done. And then I've got an HD audio connector. I'm going to check my manual for this motherboard, not 100% certain on it. Yeah, the mat for your drinks. Yeah, that thing. Hey, my 2080 Ti actually came with coasters. And its manual is pretty funny. Check out my unboxing video if it's still up. It's not definitely on my YouTube channel. It's Padden813 on YouTube. But the manual that came with this 2080 Ti is hilarious. It's actually a comic book on how to install it. It's getting pretty hot in here, so I'm opening the window. Alright. Let's install the memory. Let's get that out of the way. So RAM, it's important you install matching memory, and that's so you can take advantage of the dual data rate feature on these motherboards. Basically, you don't want to buy memory of different speeds and timings. That's just asking for a headache. I like to use, you want to use the paired sockets. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I put it in the first two slots, or slots next to each other. That's not how you do that. You want to use 1 and 3 or 2 and 4. I'm going to use 2 and 4. I'll verify that with the motherboard manual, but I was reading it last night and I seem to remember that's okay. And again, the memory only goes in one way. If you're ever somebody who's like, oh God, how do I upgrade a computer? Memory, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to pay hundreds of dollars. Installing RAM is the easiest and quickest upgrade you can do to run multiple applications and really feel like you have a new PC in some situations. All you do is that. That's it. 8 gigs of memory installed. Took that long. You'll hear it click. I don't know if you're going to hear it on the audio there, but there you go. Clicks in, RAM's installed, that's it. Now I have to set the settings in the BIOS later in the software, but that's all you do to install memory. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've only got, I'm going to make sure I'm saying that right. Yeah, RAM is knowing like that. If you go like DDR4 or GB and you only went to 16 gig. Oh, yeah. You want to make sure you install it right because otherwise you lose a lot of performance. This can actually make a big difference having that dual data rate. I'm just double checking. Yeah, again, it only has one notch. It's just telling me that. Yeah. So as I'm reading this, if you have 2 modules, it's telling you how to put them in. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this too well, but 2 modules is the top here. You can either have 1 blank and 3 blank, or you're going to have 2 and 4 blank, but you want to have alternating slots being used. Yeah, 16 gigs of memory I think is fine for gaming. Honestly, even as a streamer, if you're streaming, playing the game, I've never seen it use all my memory unless there's a memory leak in the game. Battlefield 5 at one point was using 13 gigs of memory, and that was a problem with the game. So I do not think you need to go to 32 unless you're going to be doing a lot of production tasks. I got to figure out where that audio connector goes. I don't even use the front audio on my case. I never will because I've got that really nice headset, so I might just leave this unconnected, but I'm just checking real quick, see if we can find it fast. It's one of those things like, yeah, I'm not going to use it, and then one day I'll want it, and it won't work, and I'll be all pissed and have to dig through my case, and blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Yeah, so high definition audio connector, that's right where I thought it was. Just down here in the corner hiding. And that's it, it's connected, and we're done. Alright, now I'm going to wire my hard drives in. Yeah, AAA bugs. Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was something with Streamlabs, because sometimes Streamlabs, OBS has problems when it's capturing, and that's where the memory leak starts. Or if it was something with like Chrome, or if it was something with Battlefield. I couldn't figure out what the heck it was. It was driving me nuts. I'm just turning off some lights in my house. See how we're doing on battery life on my phone. If I need to, I'll plug it in. No, we don't want to end. How are we doing? Oh, we still got 40%. We're good. Where was my cat? Where'd he go? Is he an NFC? I don't know what that means. He is we think he's Maine Coon. If that's a serious question, I don't know what NFC means. He's at least part Maine Coon. He's 15 pounds, so he's a big boy. Where'd he go? Where you at, Mr. Bear? Nah. He probably is unimpressed. When he was a kitten, he liked to climb inside my case while I was building computers. That was really entertaining. Ever worried about static electricity? Don't have a cat. Oh, Norwegian Forest cat. No, we think he's Maine Coon. Because we got him when we lived in upstate New York. He's male, and a male Maine Coon purebred weighs about 30 pounds. He weighs about 15, so we think that's what he is. Okay. Alright. Yeah, he's a great cat. What am I trying to do? Oh, I'm trying to hook up my hard drives. Getting tired. I've been working at this for a while here. I thought I'd be done, but I'm kind of going slow because I'm explaining everything. I want you guys to have a little learning experience from it. It's fun doing it. Nice way to spend an evening. Why is it bringing me to BIOS setup? Oh, I did. I skipped right over it like a fool. Okay. So next thing I'm doing, I'm going to be wiring my hard drives in. Each one needs one of these ports here. And since I installed a SATA drive, one of them is disabled, so I need to make sure I use the ones that actually going to work. Alright, so SATA 3.1 is disabled. That's going to be this guy right here. Alright. cable's a little shorter. Here. All right. Yeah, waiting for Windows to install. However, I have a solid state. Windows will install quick. So yeah, I probably won't be streaming tonight after this. We'll see. I do go to Eaton. I'm glad I came home. I took an hour off early from work to get here. Start playing with this. I wanted to have something a little more relaxing. I've been kind of stressed with work lately, so. And I hadn't earned an hour, so I can do that. All right. I think the next step is to run that power cable from my power supply through the back of the side of the case up here, because I've only got one right now. I did hear this motherboard will run fine with only one 8-pin power connection, but it has two, so I'm going to use two. Let's make sure my little workspace here is clear. So my overclock, I'm looking for a pretty modest one. I'm hoping at 5 gigahertz stable. I think with this should be easy. This has a extremely good VRM setup. That's part of the reason I actually ended up ordering 2 motherboards and returning the other one, even though that one was pretty good too. So this is a 12-phase VRM, 12 plus 2. You can tell they're underneath these heat sinks. These look like they're decorative if you see them up close, but there actually are fins on them. I did an unboxing video yesterday. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, the audio wasn't working on my phone when I did the unboxing video, so you don't really hear anything, but you can at least see it. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to try to aim for 5 gigahertz all core, which I should be able to hit. You know, I got good thermal paste, great cooler here for this. You know, I think 5 gigahertz, I mean, 1 core on this is supposed to run at 5, or I think up to 2 cores can run at 5, so just asking for 5 on all cores shouldn't be a problem. I'm not going to overclock the first day, but probably this weekend I'll spend some time doing it. Maybe I'll fire up the camera again and let you guys see how that goes. Yeah, I mean, I don't see how I couldn't hit 5 gigahertz. I mean, the chip is rated to run at 5. Its all core frequency, I think, is 4.7 when all 8 cores are in use. So I'm trying to get a 300 megahertz overclock. And again, it's designed to run at 5 with 2 cores at that speed. So I don't think we're going to have an issue. All right, so I'm going to lift this thing up. Making sure nothing's in the way. Oh, yeah, see, we don't want to do it with this here. We're going to go put this other motherboard, my old motherboard, we're going to put this back here. Hi, Bear. Trying to trick me now? You heard I was going to lift things and decided you had to get underfoot? This is the part where Pan goes, what the hell did I do with my other 8-pin cable? I know I brought it out. It was in this bag. Knowing me, I'm like, oh, let's put it somewhere so I have it. And then I forgot where I put it. Luckily, I have video evidence this time. It's not in here. It's not in here. What the heck did I do with it? Not in my pocket. 5.3 or 5.5. Yeah, maybe. What the hell did I do with this thing? Tell I'm tired. Memory's like gone. Alright, nope. Nope, that goes in here. There it is, hiding under the manual. There's a reason, you know, I will say this about myself, I know myself pretty well. So there's a reason, and this is kind of a good tip for when you're building a PC. Keep everything in the same spot. Get everything ready before you have to. That way, if you need something, you don't have to go wandering around looking for it. I try to do that as best I can. Alright, so my power supply is fully modular, which means I only need to put in the cables I need to use, so I didn't need this before, so I didn't have it installed. So, there you guys can see the inside and where we're at. Taking off the back side. Yeah. So in my case, here you're getting a nice little inside view. I'm not going to show you guys the back. Maybe I will. But the back, I'm not a super neat wirer. You'll find people who definitely are more skilled at it than I am. But here's the back. Okay, so I've wired everything through here, so you don't see it. It's good for a couple of reasons. It looks neater. It's better for cooling, because I do have 4 side fans right here, so you don't want them blowing all over the cables. I want them cooling my hardware. Alright, so I got a PSU power supply cable I gotta put in. Can I do it? Just seeing if I got... Alright. I need to turn this because I don't have enough light to see what I need to see right now. So what I'm looking at here, just so you guys can kind of get a sense, I want to make sure that I have room on my power supply for this other cable. So I'm just trying to make sure that that's true. Shouldn't be a problem. Famous words. We're going to wire this. This is the end that goes in the motherboard, so that's going to go up there. This is going to go down here, underneath everything. Alright, we're good. It's an 850 watt power supply, so I'd be pretty amazed if I didn't have the connectors I need. Alright, all I'm going to do is check on my tablet real quick, make sure that that works the way I think it's supposed to. I have a Seasonic Focus Gold 850 Plus. And so all I'm making sure is that the line that I plug that into is one that I can use. I had to move another cable, and I also want to make sure that what I put it into can power my graphics card. Otherwise, like I said, I can do it with one of these cables. I don't need to use both, so... come on. Fortunately, my tablet is like a very slow tablet. Alright, manual's opening up. Alright. The manual doesn't tell me, so we're going to have to assume that that works. Okay, so it says the connectors are keyed so they only fit one way. I was able to plug it in. If it didn't work, it wouldn't have plugged in. Yeah, we're good. Okay, we're all set. Alright, so I'm just gonna, while I got the side panel off, pull this cable through a little bit better. Make sure it's pretty tight. We're gonna actually, I gotta go and over another cable back here, and I don't want that to happen. It's gonna not be a good use of the space. That'll work better. That, pull her through. Alright, and then should be good to hook it up. It's been a while since I've done this, so thanks for hanging out with me, guys. It makes it more fun. Normally it's just a slow, lengthy, painful process. There you go. Now, at this stage, my hard drives are wired, the CPU is installed, my SATA drive's installed, my motherboard power connectors are connected, my case USB ports and switches and all the front panel stuff is connected. We're basically ready to finish up. RAM is installed. You know, we've applied the thermal paste. So now it's just the finishing touches. Installing the add-on cards. Installing the graphics card, my media capture card, and my USB card. I'm gonna fire up Twitch chat on my tablet again. If you guys are listening, you can hear me. Do me a favor, send a message just so I can make sure this is working. Give me 1 sec, it's not quite there yet. Okay, if you can, send me something. Why is it not rotating? That's fine. Now we're good. I can hear you fine. Okay, thanks, Tannhauser. I appreciate it. Alright, so we're about to put our finishing touches on here. So if there's anything you guys want to see, now's the time to ask. In terms of, you know, equipment. So Tannhauser, I think I'll show you this. This is the capture card I bought using your bits. Thank you very much again. This is a really nice capture card. It's going to let me stream up to 4K 60 frames a second in HDR. So this is hugely future-proof. I'm going to be installing it in the bottom slot. When you guys are building a computer, there's usually in a motherboard like this, you're going to have a few different slots where you can install your graphics card, add-on cards. You always want to use, generally, the top slot for your graphics card because it's going to have the most lanes to the CPU. I'm not going to get too technical here, but CPUs only have a certain amount of PCI Express lanes, generally 20 for this class of processor. And so you want as many of these as you can going to your graphics card. Now, unless you have a 2080 Ti, it's the first time it's been an issue, you don't need all 16, you just need 8. They did find with the 2080 Ti, if you go from 16 lanes to 8 lanes, that you're basically losing 2 to 3% in performance the first time that's happened. This card requires 4 lanes to operate, and I had to make sure I got a motherboard that had a slot that has 4 lanes in it and would let me run my 2080 Ti at 16. The other motherboard I ran, basically of the 3 slots, it would only let you do 8, 4, and 4. It would not let you do 16, 0, and 4. This one will let you do 8, 8, 4, or 8, or 16, 0, 4, which is what I need to do. There's a trade-off to that because it's wired this way and the other one was wired differently. When I use these M2 solid-state drives or M2 SATA drives, I do lose some of my ports over here. That's why I had to be careful which ones I wired into for my other hard drives. So it's a trade-off either way. You got to kind of pick your poison there. So that other board isn't necessarily worse. It's just not going to be as good for my needs. So to install one of these, rather than me covering up the camera, all you do is line it up with the edge of your case. Make sure it's lined up down below with the slot. And you push down until it clicks. And in my case, it has quick connects and quick disconnects. All I do is push this thing down and this will lock it into place. Just making sure I got it right. Yeah. I had to make a little adjustment over here, but not major. And actually, I'm going to screw this in. Yeah, I'm going to screw this one in just because I'll be plugging in things to it, since it's a capture card. Let's see. Oh, maybe I won't. Let's try this again, shall we? I'm sure I did this right. Yeah, I did it right. Okay. Sometimes when you install a new motherboard, things line up differently. And in this case, it's lining up a little differently, so I can't use a little clicker. That little quick connect here, it's got a piece of plastic that's blocking it. You guys can't see it, but it is. Alright, next thing is going to be the 2080 Ti. This is actually a little difficult. So what I just did is I pushed down on the latch that catches the 2080 Ti. You want to make sure you do that, otherwise it won't really go in right. If you want to see it, here you go. My back plate, very pretty. The fans on the front. Notice the one by my thumb over here. My left thumb is smaller. The side you'll see from when it's installed. Again, I got it upside down, but it'll look like this in the case. And then you can also see the heat sinks. This thing is a beast. 3 power connectors. Not that that really matters. There's a technical explanation, but all I need to know is they put an extra power connector on here to be fancy. Now I can't do this from the side because this thing barely fits in my case. Look how close this is on the edge. Alright? It's literally right up against it, so I really have to line it up well. That's it. Clicks in, she's in. What I'm going to do next is install it came with a support brace. You guys are going to laugh at this. So, that card is so big, one of the issues you can have when the case is standing upright is this thing will sag. It won't damage anything. The slots on this motherboard are reinforced with steel. They're very strong. I would really have to try to break it, but what happens is people get these big cards, they forget to hit that little latch I was pointing out earlier to pull it out. So they start yanking on this big card, like, why aren't they coming out? And they rip their motherboard in half. So you install this thing, which is a little metal brace it came with. One, to prevent the sag. It's got some padded edges here and here. But also to make sure that in order to remove the card, you can't yank it out without pulling this thing out first and kind of slowing yourself down. So one of the things I'm fiddling with, just so you guys know, something doesn't feel right with this capture card. It feels like it's being pushed forward, and I think it's because it's pushing into these bottom USB cables a little bit. I don't think it's going to be an issue, but I'm going to get a screw and secure it in place. I'll have to do that in a minute. Apparently I've only got 4 screws. Of course I washed my dirty hands several times. If you had been here, you would have known that. Just so you guys know, he's a buddy of mine. Alright. So, installing this brace with one person is kind of a pain in the butt, because I have to go through and line up things very perfectly to do it. I'm going to do my best not to get all tilted here. Actually, you know what? It's going to be easier for me to do this without this gamer card installed. I'm going to put that back in a sec since it only takes a minute. This is actually going to be one of the slowest parts of this whole thing. Unless I get lucky. Oh no! Alright, good. I lost the screw. I do not know where it went. Where did that thing go? Oh boy. It's a black screw, which is going to be really hard to find. Let's turn this a little bit so I get some better light. Alright. I was getting excited before. I didn't say anything, but I was getting excited because I actually got this lined up on my first try. And I was like, oh yes, I finally got it. And I screwed up. Alright, where is this screw hiding? There it is, under the card. I would never have been able to find that. Alright, try it again, shall we? Got better light over here, so I'm going to do it on this end. Got it. Alright. Might be time to get some smash emotes up in the chat. If anyone's still paying attention. I got it. Alright. I'm very excited. I gotta put this little guy back in. This is a little back plate to cover this slot that's not being used. Yeah. Whoa. That's new. Oh, that's my neighbor's. Sprinklers just turned on behind me. Alright. There's an easy way to do this and the hard way, and I'm doing it the hard way. Let's do it the easy way. Alright. Get a really strong magnet. Yeah, no kidding, Vince. Yeah, just as a heads up, guys, I don't recommend using a magnetic screwdriver. Honestly, it's probably too weak to actually damage anything, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's just an unnecessary risk. Alright, we got 2 more things to do and we're done. Then I gotta put the side panel and those stands back on. Alright. Gotta go pull out my potatoes. We're just about done. Mr. Bear's passed out over here if you can see him. Alright, so the potatoes need more time. Alright. And the last thing, my little USB capture card. This mean my little USB card, rather. USB PCI Express card. That's it. It needs power. That's why this guy was hiding out. Alright. Power is connected. And now I have to hook up the power to the 2080 Ti. So, a lot of talking I've been doing today. So I've got some connectors over here, and I'm just double checking before I do that to make sure nothing came loose. All my hard drives are still plugged in. Power is good. This cable's a little ugly. There's not really a lot I can do about it. It doesn't look great. Oh, I know what I can do. Run it underneath here. Alright, so last step. Yeah. Well, my phone is also picking up all the noise. Let me shut at least one of these doors, or windows. My phone, like yesterday, was picking up no audio. Now it's picking up the sound of like a pin dropping in a, memory foam mattress. Okay. So the last part here is going to be to connect the power connectors to the graphics card. Here's the bundle of power connectors that all got to go to this graphics card. It's a little bit ridiculous. Oh, just so you know, it's not actually all these connectors. It looks like it is. It's not. They're split connectors, so there's 2 ends to it. I've got a little Velcro thing to keep them together, but we'll put that on in a sec. Make my life easier for a moment. You don't want to daisy chain this and use 2 connectors like this to cover 2 ports. That's a really bad idea. I'm not saying it'll blow anything up, it just won't work. It might blow stuff up, I don't know. There's a reason that they have separate lines. Alright, so there's one 8-pin. There's 8-pin number 2. And here's my 6-pin. Okay. RTX on. And then I got a little Velcro it came with so I can tie cables together, kind of keep things a little neater. That's not as tight as I want it to be. Alright. Velcro those on. I probably am not using those fully exactly like they're supposed to, but I like to make sure these cables stay out of the way because I do have a bunch of fans on the side. Alright. So that's it, guys. That's the full build. I've got to put the side panel on and then go install windows. This is where the final kind of test comes. So what I'll do, if you guys are interested, is I will hook this thing up. And we'll watch together if it powers on or if I'm going to have to cry. Alright. But the last thing before I power it on, I got to attach my side panel again. So I'm just double checking my little area here. Yep, everything's installed. I got some cleaning up to do, but now I got 4 fan cables here. I have to connect these to the motherboard so my fans are powered. Alright. So that can be a little bit of a process. What I'm going to do, reference the motherboard layout just to make sure I put them where I want them. I want them all in system fans if I can. Okay, so these are actually really well laid out. So to show you where I can connect fans, where you see these circles, and these, this is temperature probes. You know, I didn't install the temperature probes. That might be a cool thing to do. Let me look at that real quick. I've never done that, and it comes with it. So these probes are, you can put them anywhere you want in the computer and it'll kind of read the temperature, obviously, you know. So what I think might be interesting is to kind of keep one over here in the hard drive cage area. And then maybe one down by the power supply underneath here. Actually, I'm going to keep one in the top of the case. I'd be curious to see how much heat is being generated by the 2080 Ti and getting pumped up here, because this is sucking air out the top, so the Ti just spitting air everywhere and there's stuff coming in from the side. So it'll be interesting to see if I get any hot spots. Yeah. The downside is this isn't really well labeled. I do have one with a white line going through, which I think is going to be the positive terminal because the other one's black. Alright, here goes nothing. Nice. Gaming anniversaries, man. Gotta celebrate. So just so you guys know what I'm doing right now, I'm just trying to figure out where to put this thermistor, this temperature probe, because it's just going to read. So I'm going to try to leave it dangling. I mean, I think in theory what you're supposed to do is tape it to something. Because it would be nice if I could just have it kind of up in the middle of the air here. What I can do, I'm going to wire tie it. Actually, you know what? I got Velcro. Let's do Velcro. Alright. So the Velcro will keep the temperature probe pretty well in place with these coolant lines. Okay. So that way I'll be getting a nice little sense of the temperature up at the top of the case. And then the other one I'm going to install, its read is at the bottom. I'm going to put it in this area where the hard drives are. I'm glad I remembered to do this because it is a kind of an extra feature of this motherboard that has these temperature probes, and I would like to, get a sense of, I'd like to use them. Alright. I'm just going to kind of let it sit here. I'm going to pull out my food for real this time. Alright. Whew. What time is it? It's getting late, right? Sure it is. Okay, so we're going to hook up our fans and wrap her up. So that's her, here's my build. Get a little view of it real quick. It's heavy. A lot heavier than it was when it was empty. Get it hooked up. Last thing. Oops. It's stuck. Alright. Let's get those fans hooked up. Alright, so this is going to be a little bit delicate. But it should be easier than it was with my old motherboard. Done. Wow. That's a really difficult placement for the fan. I gotta wedge it next to the power connectors. There's 8 connectors, so I don't have to use this one. I'm just gonna try. It's actually not that bad. This doesn't look that bad. There we go. I got it. No problem. Alright, the last one. Nope. Last one's this guy. It's not one in the middle of the board. There it is. It's right there. Okay. Alright, fellers, that's it. We're ready to hook her up and install Windows. Thanks for hanging out this long. I am going to hook it up and see if it powers on, so if you want to hang around for that, I'll be in the other room. I can't really bring the camera there while I'm doing it, so I'll come get it in a minute. But we're looking pretty good so far. You know, usually Intel sends you a cool sticker. So I'm wondering if there's a cool Intel sticker for this i9. I betcha I missed it. Bam! i9. Got that old i7 sticker on here. We'll stick that over there in case whoever buys it wants it. Ding, 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 ding. i9 sticker installed, the hardest part of the whole thing. And then we've got a Gigabyte decal for Auroras. Gotta put that on there. Bam. Done. Got our stickers. Now, as long as nothing was dead on arrival, we're good to go. So you can see why having a dead on arrival thing sucks, and why am I mentioning it after I finish all that work, I don't know. Just clean it up real quick. There are a bunch of accessories over here I didn't use. This thing, just so you know, if you look at this motherboard, oh, I do want to leave this out. My Wi-Fi antenna. I don't plan to use Wi-Fi, but it does come with a pretty nice looking antenna. Gave me 4 SATA cables. This looks like a fan extender. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. I don't know. I think a lot of this is actually for RGB lighting if you want to do RGB. You know, light up your computer. Alright, so that's all done steam. Let's go here. I'm going to throw all this plastic away so little cats don't eat it. Alright guys, if you're listening, I'm going to hook this up right now, so I'll be out of the room for a minute. I guess you can enjoy watching the table and my cat. We'll go hook this bad boy up and see what happens. I'll come back and get you guys for the power up. All right, we're just about ready. I need to plug in 2 more things. All right. It's time for the moment of glory. Have to see if this thing actually works. So I'm gonna have to hold this. I will do my best to give you a decent camera angle. All right. So it might be time for a drum roll. But I did see the lights turn on the inside when I plugged it in. So I'm gonna hit the power. We'll see if we get a post screen. I heard it power up and turn off. Not abnormal for the first time. It's running again. Not good. Turned on, turned off again. Beeped. Okay, we got to the BIOS. That's good. Okay, we're gonna run into the BIOS. It reset the CMOS. That's a good step. So it reset the BIOS automatically. Wants me to reconfigure it. All right, so that's a good sign. Okay, we're in the CMOS. We're in the BIOS. It's turned on. Generally now I just need to set it up. So let's see if we got the right time on there. I don't think we do. Yeah. Nope, let's change that. All right. So okay, we've got the right idea. I'm gonna have to boot from the thing to reinstall Windows. We're gonna enable fast boot. Actually, we'll turn it off until we get ready. Okay, so I'm just setting everything up. We're looking okay so far. It doesn't look like the power lights are turning on the front. which either means one of those cables came loose or I wired them backwards. It was a little weird how they work. My guess is one of the cables came loose. However, I'm actually okay with that because the power lights on this thing are annoyingly bright blue and they're not that important. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of stuff here I gotta look through. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of stuff I have to set up and tweak. I'm gonna see if I can get Windows installed, start that process. I'm on BIOS F4, which is from August, so I do know there's a more modern BIOS, more recent BIOS up. So we'll get Windows up, we'll update the BIOS, and we'll go from there. All right, let's save and exit. Hitting F12 to go to the boot menu. Okay, we're in the boot menu. Now this is where you could pick where you're going to start from. It's different keys. I'm going to be booting from a USB drive because we're going to be reinstalling Windows. It did turn off there when I hit enter, so. It's a scary sound when a computer turns off because it's just like everything stops. But you can see everything's running okay. See everything's lit up. One of the things that used to happen before is one of my USB drive, or one of my USB ports would short out my old motherboard and it would restart over and over, so I'm wondering if that's what's going on. Yeah, because it is working. Alright guys, I'm going to end the stream so I can get everything working. It's going to take me a little bit. If you hung out this long, that's what I was doing wrong the whole time. If you hung out this long, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I should be up and running by tomorrow. I am booting in the Windows as we speak. So there you go. You can see it. We're going to be good to go here. So I'm going to get that going. You guys have a good evening. Thank you for hanging out while I built my PC. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm trying to think of unique things I can do to kind of grow my channel. And my wife just got home, so this timed out well. So thanks, Tannhauser. I'll see you guys all soon. Have a good night.